one of the things I noticed when I was going over the truck, this switch has had far better days. And this goes to the multifunction switch. So I'll have to be repairing that, and this part of the harness is actually integral. So what I'm gonna have to do to replace that, I'm gonna have to lop this off and get a new pigtail for it. Luckily, right here in the truck is a whole nother harness that somebody else lopped off, and there's the connector I need. So I'm gonna get this undone, get all of this soldered and spliced back onto there. Now if you see what I did there, all these wires are now a different length. I stagger cut them on an angle. Granted, you know, some of them are out of order, not a big deal. But the reason you want to do that is so when you put all of your connectors on, you don't have a wad of them sitting right close, because it'll end up taking so much room that it won't fit inside of the steering column shroud. So now I'm going to go through and strip each one of these back, lock one of these on, and then we can go over to the truck and install it. Now it is worth saying that at this point you could have just lopped this harness off and gone through and de-pinned each wire and put it back in place, reusing just the connector. But in my experience doing that, they never seem to quite lock back in correctly. You'll end up with a loose wire connection, and it's irritating. So solder and heat shrink is the way I do it. So there we go. There's our complete pigtail ready to go back on. Bring you guys in close here. You notice that I didn't use the typical, wrap the end of the wire up trick. For using crimp-on connectors, that works fine. But for what I'm doing here, hopefully you can make that out. Leave the wires completely open, and I leave just a little bit of wire hanging out the back of the solder. That way when the new wire comes in, the individual strands can push themselves together. I've found that makes the solder flow much easier to lock them together. Now they're all nice and staggered. Once the heat shrink and the solder is all sucked down, this will be a nice tight little harness, and it'll be nice and neat. I've often wondered how YouTube mechanics can film what they are doing. Trying to work around the camera. It's not a whole lot of fun. But so anyways, I looked under the dash in this truck, and it still had the bracket for the clutch and brake pedals, but just the pedals were gone. So the guy I got it from did it the easy way and took out the cross shaft. So I got on Craigslist. I found another guy parting out another V10, two-wheel drive one, and I scored the pedals from him. I'm gonna try to sneak them up in here. Get that cross pin to go all the way through. Because what I would like to do, I also picked up from the same gentleman, steering column with key, everything on it. I kind of want to hear this truck run before I get too crazy on it. So I'm going to attempt to get everything in place, hook up the clutch cancel switch, see if I can get this thing to fire up. Now the pedals are in there. Now I'm going to move the camera so I can get the circlip on. Man, I wish every guy on Craigslist was as nice as this guy. He saved every last nut and bolt. All the bolts for the clutch pedal assembly, the pinch bolt for the sector shaft, the bolts for the steering column. good people still in this world. They give you a deal like that. Told him I just needed the pedals and the steering column, and he sent all that with it. That is awesome in my book. I didn't even notice that. It's a tilt column too. Man, I'm high rolling now. Steering lock even works. Steering wheel's a little ratty, but pull that out of my other truck if we need to. Fancy. My other truck isn't tilt. I'm sure my wife will like that if she ever decides to drive this one. Get our harness routed on here. That one clicked in. I already got the safety restraint system, which yeah, we won't talk about what I do with those. Ignition switch. Horn. What else we got here? We need to replace this one. This is the pigtail we already started. What is this guy? Ignition stuff. So even the mechanics don't always know what they're doing. But if the colors match and the connector matches, it must go there. Alright, let's go get our pigtail and replace this one. I'm gonna have to break out my wiring schematics. Some of these wires don't match colors, so I'm not gonna mess with that right now. But that only controls the multi-function switch. We don't need that to run. You see a little clutch safety cancel delete currently, because if you see the hole up there in the firewall, I don't have a clutch master cylinder. Well, I do, but it's broken, so there's no sense in putting it in. So I just cut the harness off of it, twisted them together. I don't know when this truck was ran last. I don't know how old the fuel is in it. It did come with a battery that seems to have some life, so it's just kind of dirty dangling on the tire there. The bolts that hold the power wires onto the starter were both missing. I used one of the steering column bolts that was extra and bolted down the power wire. It appears to want to crank. So let's see if we can get this thing to fire up. looking for, it doesn't know what. Oh, now it's smoothed out. It does have dual flow masters on it. Really rattly. That'll be good for wood gas. Ooh, yeah, I can smell the exhaust. That fuel's old. Got oil pressure. Got fuel in the tank. Looks like it's charging. Now it's actually idling. Just having oil pressure is good, because my other truck, the oil pressure gauge don't work, and it's irritating. I do like knowing that I have oil pressure. Yeah, there's something missing that it wants to see, because it ain't running very, it's got no throttle response. Woo! And that is some really nasty fuel. See if it'll idle again. Yeah, it idles nice and smooth. I do have all the O2 sensors hooked up. They were unplugged when I got it. So, yeah. Cool. It's gonna breathe. It's gonna live. And it's gonna be awesome. Now it's been running for about 5 minutes. Idling pretty good. I noticed in the back, see if you guys can see it, there's a couple of containers of bars stop leak for radiators. That's never a good sign. So I was curious while I was sitting here warming up, building pressure. Well, I just have to bring you guys in close. That radiator's junk. See the coolant track coming down? Yep. Oh, I shouldn't have touched it. I made it worse. Or maybe the stop leak is working. I don't know. I'll have to use the radiator out of my other truck. But running pretty good. Yep. Right on. Okay, we got some jumpers going to the grounds. Those are jumped over to the battery. These grounds off to the frame, little jumpers. See, we got tail lights, but those are actually the brake lights because the brake light switch is out of adjustment. But so I went through and I went every wire that was color to color, and the ones that changed were luckily still in position on the old plug, so I was able to reference them to the position on the new plug. So got turn signals, got four ways, got windshield wipers, got windshield wiper squirters. That's oh, and the high beam switch does function. Obviously there's no headlights in it, but yeah, there we go. So that's pretty much everything that was important that needs to be done. Now it's when can I down my V10 and start ripping parts out of it.